be talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Thursday edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Let me say this. It is November. We got the college football, college hoops crossover, and I am here to tell you we got ourselves a jam-packed Thursday show heading into the weekend. So we're going to open the big college football news of the day. Billy Napier is back at Florida. He is off the hot seat. He will return in 2025. What does it mean for Florida? Is it the right decision? We're going to break this thing down from all angles. Also worth noting, by the way, speaking of the hot seat, Sam Pittman. There was a report on Wednesday that Sam Pittman is off the hot seat. I'm not sure that I totally believe that. We will discuss why. And is Sam Pittman safe at Arkansas? Is he not safe? And most importantly, could Arkansas, by the way, be the biggest job that opens this year if he leaves, because there is no Florida on and on. So we'll talk those two big topics. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We will do our Week 11 preview. As always, our college football betting page has lengthy previews on all these big games. I'll just give you my quick picks on Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama-LSU, Michigan, Indiana, Colorado, Texas Tech, on and on. And then finally, we will wrap with a little bit of college hoops from Wednesday night. I don't know if we'll do college hoops every single episode going forward, but Villanova loses, we got to talk about that. UConn rolls, we got to talk about that. Arkansas wins, but they don't look great in Cal's debut as the head coach at Arkansas. I got him in my preseason Final Four. Should I be worried? We are going to discuss all that here in just a moment. Before we get started, do want to welcome back our partners, our friends, Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Okay, so listen, it's football season. You're on the couch. The stakes are getting higher. College football playoff rankings are out, right? And you need something healthy but delicious to eat while you're gorging on college football in the NFL. You need something to gorge on the couch. That's where Collie Puffs come in, okay? These are delicious, healthy snacks, baked, not fried, healthy ingredients. But here's the crazy part. They taste delicious, and this is why you got to try them out, okay? A family-owned company not far from where I live, started by a guy by the name of Joey, who's a huge football fan just like you. And his story is no different than yours. He loves football. He's on the couch. He's got young kids. He's trying to find something healthy for them to eat, something healthy for him to eat. And so he created Collie Puffs. Again, baked, not fried, healthy ingredients. And the best part is they taste delicious. They comes in all sorts of flavors. You're going to love them. And I encourage you to not to take my word for it, but try them out for yourself. For more information, you can go to ColliePuffs.com. You can also go to Amazon.com and put in your first order. Trust me, you're going to love them. Like I said, you can also purchase on Amazon. You got the cart full already with all sorts of good stuff. Throw some Collie Puffs in. But thank you to Collie Puffs. We appreciate their support. Delicious, healthy alternative snack. And we are so grateful that they are a partner of the Aaron Torres podcast. With that said, it's a busy Thursday. There's a lot going on. By the way, drop your comments in the comment section. Let's get this comment section humming here. It is a Thursday. There is no more time to waste. So let's go ahead and get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day, it's crazy. I thought it was going to be a pretty quiet Thursday here in college football. Well, as it turns out, the only thing that might be quiet this year is the college football hot seat. Billy Napier, we've talked about him since really the end of last season. Team struggled, recruiting class falls apart. We talk about him in the summer, what he has to do, all that good stuff. Starts off 1-2 with the losses to Miami and Texas A&M. He seemed like a goner. The team has played better over the last couple weeks. Well, heading into a matchup, top 5 opponent on the road with Texas this weekend, Billy Napier, it was announced by the University of Florida, will return for a, 4th season of college football next year. He will be back for another season. And it's interesting because we actually talked about this on Sunday's Aaron Torres pod. The idea of even with the win-loss record not being where you want it to be, has he done enough? And so we found out Florida believes he has done enough. Florida is having him back. He will play he will coach college football for another season. Now, in terms of if I think it's the right decision, let's just get right down to it. I know this is controversial. By the way, I have seen Florida fans on social media say we're a poverty program, we're no longer serious, all that good stuff. Well, guess what? I actually happen to agree with Florida. I actually happen to believe this is the right decision. And let me go ahead and explain why. Okay. And listen, circumstances matter, context matters, and stuff changes, right? And let me, even before we get into this, because you can find videos on the YouTube channel, you can find old episodes of the podcast where I say Billy Napier's got to go. Said it after Miami, said it after he said that all the fans were hanging out in their basements in Central Florida, even though there are no basements in Central Florida. Said it after you got embarrassed at home against Texas. But things have changed, and I believe he should be brought back for another year. Let me explain why. The first thing, team is getting better. You can argue it, you can fight it, you can debate it, but we've talked about it. On this show, we have said over the last couple weeks, since the first bye 3 or 4 weeks ago, well, I think it was about 6 weeks ago now, Florida's been a better team. After the first bye, listen, Billy Napier's talked about it. I'll let him use his words, but they kind of had a couple physical padded practices during the first bye. Well, they come out of it, and guess what happens? They destroy Central Florida at home. Don't let the final score fool you. They jumped on them early. It wasn't even close. They didn't even score in the second half because they didn't have to. Home underdog, destroy Central Florida. They then go to Tennessee, and they are a 14-point underdog on the road. They lose in overtime in a game that they obviously could have won because it was lost in overtime. A week later, home underdog against Kentucky, destroy Kentucky. And then last week, listen, we all watched the cocktail party. We all saw the fact that Florida, when DJ Lagway was in the game, was the better team, at least for a quarter and a half, had the lead, was in control, and then, oh, by the way, still had a chance to win the game late. And so why I believe that Florida made this move now, the team is improving. The team is getting better. Let me also say this. This is going to sound weird, and it's going to sound like I'm pro-injury or whatever. I think there were the circumstances of the two major injuries at Florida, I think weirdly actually helped Florida come to this decision, and in a weird way helped Billy Napier. To be clear, I'm not encouraging injuries. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying I'm happy that players got hurt. But just think about it, right? Because coming into this season, the whole argument all offseason long was DJ Lagway was the future, and this was the reason that you had to believe in Billy Napier if you wanted to believe in Billy Napier. Finally got his quarterback, top five prospect in America, maybe the number one quarterback in America, depending on what recruiting service you chose to follow. Gatorade Player of the Year, he's going to be the difference. Well, what happens early? Billy Napier says from the beginning, we are not rushing this kid out there. Both quarterbacks, he and the veteran Graham Mertz, will play. Well, then Graham Mertz gets hurt in the middle of the season against Tennessee. To be clear, not wishing injury upon anybody. Hope that is obvious, okay? But at the same time, when Graham Mertz gets hurt, this is what happens. DJ Lagway goes in, and he is very clearly the future, okay? Listen, the stats don't blow you away, but just watch the film, just watch the tape. This kid is so obviously talented. And I think there are times, listen, you get a 5-star quarterback, doesn't mean it's always going to work out. Not going to pick on anyone specifically, but you know the names of the guys that were expected to save a program, and they couldn't and they didn't. DJ Lagway looks like that kind of dude. And so the Mertz injury helps. And then I think, and again, I'm not rooting for injury, but DJ Lagway going down last week put Florida in a precarious situation going forward. Because if the goal was get to 6-6 and bowl eligible, what happens if DJ Lagway's hurt the next couple weeks? What if he can't play? He's got the hamstring injury. We don't know if he's going to play this weekend against Texas. So if you don't give Billy Napier the support of approval, maybe they rush back DJ Lagway. But if they don't, if he's hurt, how do you judge the guy? You got basically a game and a half of DJ Lagway. They look awesome. And if you struggle down the stretch without DJ Lagway with a third-string quarterback in, that's not an indictment on Billy Napier. Nobody has a good third-string quarterback. And so the fact that Lagway's banged up, I think Florida just said, look, we have seen enough that we believe that with DJ Lagway, we will be significantly improved from start to finish this next year, and that Billy Napier deserves another season. I think it's also worth noting the transfer portal stuff with Lagway should be an X factor, right? Because say you don't believe in Billy Napier at all. Say you don't, okay? And I've seen a lot of that. We're a poverty program, Florida stinks, whatever, blah, blah. Here would be my argument to that. Okay, fine. Maybe Billy Napier is not the next Nick Saban, okay? But at the same time, at any level of football, what is the most important thing? Do you have the right quarterback or do you not? I mean, coaches, NFL, GMs, hired, fired, all whether you pick the right quarterback or not. Bill Belichick looks like the greatest coach of all time when he has Tom Brady, completely falls apart without him, okay? And so I bring it up because at Florida, with DJ Lagway, who has a better quarterback situation the next couple of years with that kid on your roster? Maybe Tennessee with Nico, maybe Texas with Arch Manning, although I'm not even sold on that. And so you at least have the quarterback situation figured out. And if you fire Billy Napier, Lagway's going to hit the portal. And think about all the teams that are going to need a quarterback after this season. Florida State, yeah, that's going to be Mike Norvell's last stand. He needs to find a quarterback. Mario Cristobal, clearly willing to pay whatever it takes to get the right quarterback. And by the way, you could get Lagway for 2 years because he's got 2 years of eligibility left, 3 really, but you get the point. Auburn might need a quarterback. Texas A&M might need a quarterback. USC, Lincoln Riley's last stand, might need a quarterback. So Michigan needs a quarterback. So you go on and on down the list of the number of schools that would be interested in this kid if he hit the portal. And to me, I'll be honest, I think Florida made the right decision sitting there saying, you know what, rather than completely starting over, rather than tearing this thing down, losing DJ Lagway to the portal, let's not lose DJ Lagway. Let's keep DJ Lagway. And in the process of keeping DJ Lagway, let's give it one more year to figure it out. Because if you fire Billy Napier, you're completely starting from scratch. The whole team hits the portal. A lot of talented players led by Lagway. With Napier, you keep the roster together and you figure out if he's the right guy. Assuming Lagway stays healthy, by this time next year, we're going to know. And I would say that's really my thought in a couple more, seconds here is, first off, there's nothing that says that if Florida goes 0-4 down the stretch and they're terrible, that you can't change this decision, right? There's nothing there's nothing legally binding that says because you put out this statement, you have to keep them. If the team's a disaster, if Lagway comes back, whatever it is, you go 0-4, you lose to Florida State, you finish 4-8 overall because you're 4-4 right now, you can still fire him. It's not like you have to keep him. But what this does, it gives a vote of confidence. All of those vultures behind the scenes trying to convince players to enter the portal. Your coach isn't going to be there next year. It quiets that. Now, you're still going to lose players to the portal. But at the same time, the conversation and the players that are sitting there saying, do I consider entering the portal? I don't know if my coach is going to be there next year. Do I at least take phone calls right now in early November because I don't know my coach's future? Now, the players that want to be there don't have to worry about it. It's one less thing you got to worry about. And the other thing is, you run it back with Lagway. He's fully healthy, and you see whether you're good enough with DJ Lagway or not. And if you're not, that's okay. You fire Billy Napier, and you do it next year. Listen, I saw some other stuff, too, about the impending house settlement, and players are going to be paid right from the school, and $20 million, and where does that money come from? I think that's part of it. I don't think it's as big of a part as people are making it out to be. If Billy Napier was terrible, if this team was a train wreck, if this team started, 3-1 and was 1 whatever in the last 3, and they were clearly going in the wrong direction, if Lagway wasn't as good, if Napier had lost a lot, I think this move would have been made this year. But I just believe that things are going in the right direction. And I'll say this, and maybe you disagree. I would rather wait one more year and be 100% right or 100% wrong that this program is, that this guy is the right guy to lead this program. I'd rather be 100% right or 100% wrong. And then if you're 100% wrong, you do it next year. You're still Florida. You're still going to have great candidates. You're still going to have the opportunity to get the guy that you want a year from now. But to tear it down when the team is finally showing some life, you have your quarterback of the future, just doesn't make sense. I know there's some people that are going to disagree with me. I know there are some people that are going to say, Torres, you don't know what you're talking about. Fire this guy. This is Florida. We don't play for consolation prizes, and we don't play for moral victories. I get it. I would just say, in my opinion, I think it's the right decision. And I think that Billy Napier should be back for another year. And we will see if, in fact, he is, because I believe it is the right decision by Florida. Quickly, do want to stay on another hot seat topic. By the way, where are the comments? You guys got to hop in the comment section. Chat, tell me what you're thinking. Come on, it's a Thursday. It feels good. Whatever. All right, let's switch gears to another interesting hot seat conversation from the last couple of days since the last time we recorded on Election Day, and it involves Arkansas football coach Sam Pittman, okay? So Arkansas sitting at 5-4. The belief before the season coming in was that all Arkansas had to do was get to a bowl game. Sam Pittman would get another season. And so I bring it up because Arkansas is 5-4. They still have Florida International on the schedule. And what is interesting is that on Wednesday, so yesterday, as most of you listened to this, there was a report from On3 that the belief in the industry is that Arkansas is going to retain Sam Pittman if they get bowl eligible. Now, you lose to Florida International, it's pretty much off the table. But you beat Florida International. Florida International is the game, right? Florida International, I believe, is the game. It's Louisiana Tech. Excuse me. I don't know why I keep saying Florida International. I got Pitbull on my mind. I apologize. Okay. So you're playing Louisiana Tech. And the thought is you beat Louisiana Tech, you get to 6 wins, you get bowl eligible, Sam Pittman is coming back. Well, I bring it up to say, let me just say this. I respect the hell out of Pete Nakos. I respect the hell out of On3. I respect the hell out of the report. One, I don't believe that just simply getting to a bowl game at Arkansas this year is enough for Sam Pittman to keep his job. And I actually think right now things can change. Still have Texas next week, still have Missouri to end the season. I believe even a win over Louisiana Tech to get bowl eligible isn't enough to keep Sam Pittman. And I think it's more likely than not right now that he's actually not back. Okay, so let me explain. And it's funny because, I think a lot of people look back to 2-3 years ago, 2021 season, Arkansas gets 9 wins. Sam Pittman is a conquering hero. Okay, listen, that era was awesome. And Sam Pittman always will, whether it's after this year, after next year, whenever he's gone, always needs to get credit for cleaning up the mess that was left by his predecessor. Chad Morris, one of the worst coaches in college football history as far as I'm concerned, at least at Arkansas. Had some moments at SMU, okay? But why I bring it up is pretty straightforward, is that when I look at the situation in Arkansas, first of all, 2 wins in the 2020 COVID season, step in the right direction after you hadn't won an SEC game in forever. 2021, that was the year Pittman got 9 wins. But increasingly, I think it's pretty obvious that year was the outlier of outliers for the Sam Pittman era, okay? First of all, it was the early part of the COVID era. You had a lot of guys come back, use an extra year of eligibility that they wouldn't have had. And some stuff broke your way. You beat LSU. Close game. That was the year LSU fires Ed Orgeron. Okay, so you beat LSU in the middle of a coaching change. You destroy Texas at home. That was Sark's first year. Texas goes 5-7. They've clearly been getting better ever since. And so you get credit for 9 wins. Nobody's not trying to credit you for 9 wins. But the counter to that is we've seen the last couple of years. 7-6 in 2022, 4-8 last year. And then this year, you spent a lot of money to bring in Bobby Petrino, a lot of money to fix some things, and you're sitting at 5-4 in the middle of the season. Now, to be clear, I think most people felt like if you get bowl eligible this year, that's probably enough. What I think has changed, though, is a couple things. Is what has really changed, in my opinion, and by the way, Arkansas fans, tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm just dead wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about, feel free to drop the comments in the comment section. But what, in my opinion, has changed, it's not just that Arkansas is 5-4. What I believe the frustration has become, nobody knows what the heck they're getting from this team and this program week to week, okay? Early in the season, you're losing games and they're close and you're frustrated and whatever. But you should have beat Oklahoma State. By the way, that loss looks worse and worse by the week. Should have beat Oklahoma State. Probably should have beat Texas A&M. Close losses, whatever. What has been frustrating for Arkansas fans, I believe, and I don't want to speak for a fan base, but this is just my outside perception. Every week you're getting something a little bit different and you never know what you're going to get, right? You have that great Tennessee win a month ago, whatever it was, early October. It was a great win. It was a great moment. Sam Pittman deserved that moment. Everybody's happy for him. You've been on the brink. You can't quite get over the hump, on and on. Here's the issue, though, is that you look at what has happened since. You beat Tennessee. You go into a bye. Everybody's feeling good. Vibes are at an all-time high. Then you come back and in a rivalry game, a complete no-show against LSU. Basically the only good game LSU's played all year, if we're being perfectly honest, okay? So complete no-show against LSU. Then a week later, you play Mississippi State. What do we make of this team? Oh, they're awesome. They destroy Mississippi State. Then you come home, you play Ole Miss, and you get destroyed by Ole Miss at home. And listen, Ole Miss is a good team, but it was a total no-show. And that's been the ebb and flow of the season. Listen, it's one thing, any fan can relate to this. It's one thing if you just lose to a better team. It happens to everybody. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're a Packers fan or a Detroit Lions fan or a Chicago Bulls fan. Everybody has games where your team loses because the other team is better. What you can't take if you're a fan is one, losing games that you shouldn't, but never knowing what you're going to get. Like the Tennessee game proved that when the staff is locked in and the players are locked in and everybody's rowing in the same direction, you can play with and beat anybody. The game the other day, though, against Ole Miss proves you don't show up, you can lose to anybody. And what really stood out to me about the Ole Miss game, I was telling producer Matt this, we do our college football betting show on Wednesdays. You know, I always like to look at ticket prices going into a game to kind of see what's the vibe around a city and a community. You know, tickets were like $25 for that Ole Miss Arkansas game last week. Top 15, top 20 team in town, sort of a rival team that you've had success against. And what stood out watching on TV, there were a lot of empty seats at Razorback Stadium. I understand it was an 11 a.m. kickoff, but you just looked, it was like, wow, there's a lot of people not showing up for these games. And so what comes to mind with Sam Pittman, I think the fan base is just kind of giving up. And I think that's a bad place to be if you're an administration, if you're a whatever. In a lot of ways, you know what it actually reminds me of? I think I've said this before. My nephew's a Dallas Cowboys fan. And I know Dak Prescott's hurt now, but even before Dak got hurt. And by the way, for the Arkansas Cowboy overlap fans, I'm sorry for even bringing this up. But I remember talking to my nephew a few weeks ago, and I was like, "How you feeling about the team?" Da 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 da. He's like, "It's like it is what it is. Dak's not good enough. Jerry's too stubborn, and things are not going well." By the way, shout out to Jerry, who's also a Razorbacks booster. So who knows? Maybe somebody will send this to him, and I'm sorry, Jerry, for criticizing you. By the way, I can't be fired from a radio station because, own this show. Anyway, neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make is my nephew was just like, there's just no reason to get excited. I just get sad watching my team. And I believe that's kind of the frustration with Arkansas fans right now is it's just kind of one of those like, you know what? Team isn't very good. We might have the great moment against Tennessee, but it's not sustainable. We didn't build off of it. And so even when you have that one-off great moment, that one moment doesn't become a great season. And so to me, I think there's a couple variables at play here. One, Pittman, he's an older guy. Like I was told even when things were going good, when he beat Tennessee, that he might retire. You know, the program's in pretty good shape and he might step away after this season. I don't know. I could go on and on, but I think my belief is that there will be some sort of mutual thing that happens at the end of the year where he's probably not back in 2025. Does he retire? Does he get fired? Obviously, we know the buyout situation where the percentage of win total has to go under a certain percentage and they don't have to pay him nearly as much. The only point I'm trying to make, maybe he comes back. I don't believe he's going to be the Arkansas. And it's not like a 95-5, like 95% chance he's gone. But I would say 55. I don't think he's going to be the coach next year. And I don't know if it's retirement. I don't know if he steps aside. I don't know if he gets fired. I don't know if it's what. But I just don't buy that report, not because the reporter aren't good, not because they're not working hard. I just think the vibe down there is a little bit not quite as good as maybe a lot of people think. All right, that's what I'm going to do. Take a quick break, come back. When we come back, we will get to our very quick Week 11 picks, college football. We'll talk Georgia-Ole Miss, LSU, Bama, Michigan, Indiana, on and on. Then we got to get to some Wednesday night college hoops. UConn rolls, Nova loses, Arkansas struggles. What does it mean? We'll take a quick break. We will be right back. Before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what. Do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball school Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Gonna be back. So want to go ahead and get to my week 11 college football picks. As I always tell you, we have a separate college football betting YouTube channel. Listen, we do deep dives on all of these big games every single Wednesday into Thursday. So if you want like the 8-minute preview on Alabama-LSU, Georgia-Ole Miss, whatever, you can go ahead and find it there. But I figured with a busy Thursday with the Napier news and the Sam Pittman news/non-news, might just be good to very quickly get to our week 11 picks. I will be quick here, but let's go ahead and dive in. So week 11, the big game, obviously Alabama-LSU. Alabama is favored at LSU. The over-under in this game is 58.5. A couple quick things. First of all, listen, I'll say this. I don't think we really have quite figured out either of these teams yet. It's early November. It sounds crazy, but you look at Bama, there's been a lot of peaks, a lot of valleys. You look at LSU, lost to USC, destroyed by A&M. They didn't lead Ole Miss until there was literally 0 seconds on the clock. And so I just bring it up because you look at LSU, basically one great game over the course of the season. And that was at Arkansas, which we just talked about. And so I just bring it up because I think we don't really know a lot about these teams. What I will say with Bama is I do think the game before the bye really was a step in the right direction. You've struggled against South Carolina. You struggled against Tennessee. You lose to Vandy. You lose to Tennessee. Well, you come back against Missouri, and I don't care how beat up Missouri is, you just absolutely destroy them. And I think more than just destroying them, it was the manner in which you did it. You got back to running the football. You got back to controlling the line of scrimmage, and it was a game where you were able to rush for 271 yards, rushing about 7 yards per carry, okay? So the run game has been better. The defense was great in that game. I'm not going to put too much stock into it. LSU, same time. Listen, we all watched the A&M game. It was bad. They couldn't control either line. A&M punked them, 243 yards rushing, on and on. In terms of this game, I'll tell you what, I don't really have a strong feel on who's going to win exactly. Like I lean Alabama. There is one bet that I do like, though. My best bet for this game is actually the over of 58.5. Let me explain why. Alabama is, listen, I think we all had a freak out about the state of their offense, and I get it. I don't think this is vintage Tua, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, whatever. But at the same time, what I would also say about Bama, you look at the two games where they really struggled. They were just playing two of the best defenses in college football. South Carolina is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Okay. By the way, we didn't even get to the Dylan Stewart story from today, but Dylan Stewart apparently commanding $1.5 million to stay in South Carolina. That's how good that he is. But that South Carolina front is elite. Tennessee's defense is elite. And so I just bring it up to very simply say that I don't know that Alabama's offense was ever as bad as we thought. I just think the defenses were that good. And LSU's defense, while they're improved, they ain't South Carolina. They ain't Tennessee. And I think Alabama will be able to move the football on. Conversely, with Alabama, listen, I think it's easy to say, oh, everything got solved against Missouri. Well, Missouri had a backup quarterback. Starting running back was banged up. I think Luther Burden went out of that game. And so I just bring it up because when you look at that game, I'm not sold that Alabama has figured out its defense, especially because in that game, Missouri still rushed for almost 200 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. And a game before that, they gave up 219 yards rushing to Tennessee. And that's without factoring in that LSU is by far the best pass offense that Alabama has seen all year. So this game feels like a 34-31 type result. I would lean Bama, but to me, the best bet is the over. I'm not sure either team is really going to be able to stop either side. I do like Bama to win that game. Over is the best bet, though. To be clear, over is the best bet. Really quickly, Ole Miss, Georgia. Game is at Ole Miss. Georgia, a 2.5-point favorite in this game. I'll just get to my picks really quick because I do want to get to some college hoops. I actually like Ole Miss minus 2.5 here, or plus 2.5, excuse me. And let me explain why. Bottom line is with Georgia, I'm sorry, Carson Beck has regressed this year. Okay, at one game it's bad. 2 games it's a coincidence. 3 times it is what it is. Okay, and you look at Carson Beck. First of all, the stats back it up. This is a guy that last year 72% completion percentage, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. This year 65% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. 3 interceptions last week against Florida. 3 interceptions in that Texas game that Georgia won. They won that game because they got up early. It was almost the reverse Georgia-Alabama. Georgia got up early. The defense held strong, but the offense wasn't great. And so you look at Carson Beck, I'm here to tell you, man, like the big games, he has not played well. Like I said, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions against Florida, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions against Texas. Alabama, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, under 55% completion percentage against Alabama. And so when you look at Georgia and you look at Ole Miss, what does Ole Miss do really well? Well, first of all, they are going to score, even though Georgia is an elite defense. But beyond that, Ole Miss has, I don't think a lot of people know this, number 2 rush defense in all of college football, okay? And why that's interesting, why that's important, why that matters is because of the fact that Lane Kiffin in the portal last offseason got very aggressive. They got Walter Nolan, they got a few other guys, and it's paying dividends. I don't think Georgia's going to be able to run the ball. Trevor Etienne, their best running back, is hurt coming into this game. And if you can't run the ball, you're going to put it on Carson Beck's back, and I worry about Carson Beck doing something dumb with the football. So I think Ole Miss wins outright. If you're worried about taking them, I would take them plus the points, 2.5. I do think Ole Miss wins. 2.5 is my best bet there. Really quickly, my other college football best bets of the weekend, Indiana hosting Michigan. Indiana, a 13.5-point favorite. The over-under in that game is set at 49.5. Going to sound crazy. I like the over of 49.5 here. First of all, let me say this. I made this mistake a few weeks ago. I said Indiana, elite offense, but they haven't faced defense. In this case, it was like Nebraska. Nebraska at the time was a top 15 defense. The over-under, I believe, was the exact same 49.5. And boom, Indiana puts up 56 points and hits the over by themselves. I don't think they're going to quite get there this week. But the thing about Michigan, they still defend the run pretty well. They're awful against the pass. 95th nationally, give up a lot of big plays. Now, they've faced some good pass offenses, Texas, Oregon, etc., but they can't stop the pass. And so I think Indiana will be able to move the football. And then from Indiana's side of things, the thing with Indiana that's interesting, number 1 run defense in college football. Do you know, though, that they have faced one team in the top 80 of rush offense? That is insane, okay? There's only 134 teams. They have faced 0 teams in the top half of college football in rush offense. Part of that might be their defense, but of their 9 wins, 8 are against FBS teams. You know that 6 of them are against run offenses that are 100th or worse. Point I'm trying to make, Michigan will run the football. They'll have success. And I believe this game has 34-21 written all over it. Indiana wins. The over, though, is my official best bet. Quickly, a couple of more games. Colorado, 3.5-point favorite at Texas Tech. I like Colorado, man. Coach Brown, listen, we spent so much time talking about Indiana. I don't think people realize, like, Colorado 6-2 after last week. Remember, Kansas State took their second league loss. Iowa State took their first league loss. Colorado is tied with Iowa State in second place in the Big 12 standings. I don't know exactly what the tiebreakers are, but if Colorado wins out, they are very likely going to be playing for a Big 12 title and a chance to make the college football playoff. What's crazy about this game, this is actually the toughest game left potentially on Colorado's schedule. Have Utah next week, at Kansas, Oklahoma State at home. All 3 of those teams, preseason top 25 teams. How about this? They're a combined 2-14 in Big 12 play this year, okay? So I just bring it up because this is going to be a tough one for Colorado. But here's the thing about Colorado. They have been great against the point spread. Colorado's covered 6 straight games. The last time that Colorado didn't cover, are you ready for this? It was against Nebraska in week 2. Okay. So they're 6-2 against the spread. Everything is on the line. I know Lubbock is a tough place to play, but here's the other thing. Texas Tech, they have the second worst pass defense in all of college football. They don't get after the quarterback. 87th in tackles for loss. They give up a lot of passing yards. I like Colorado to win. I like Colorado to cover the 3.5 as a road favorite. And I think Colorado takes one more step towards a Big 12 title. Really quickly, other than that, really just a quiet week in college football betting. The only other bet that I like, do want to give a quick shout out to this is the first time that we have ever had them in our college football best bets. How about the Arizona State Sun Devils? Okay. Arizona State, a 2.5-point favorite against UCF. And I only bring it up because, listen, first of all, UCF is kind of the opposite of Colorado. Vegas has loved them. UCF is coming off of a win against Arizona, and I think Vegas is overvaluing exactly how good they are and what they have done. Arizona's terrible. And I think there's a not zero chance that Brent Brennan is fired after 1 year as the head coach at Arizona. And so I only bring it up because UCF before that had lost 5 straight games. And it's also worth noting they've started 3 different guys at quarterback this season. So Gus Malzahn, I don't think he's figured anything out. The program's going in the wrong direction. And Arizona State quietly under Kenny Dillingham is actually a pretty good team this season, sitting at 6-2 coming into this game. They're obviously bowl eligible. Only losses at Texas Tech and at Cincinnati. And even the Cincinnati game is a little deceptive because their starting quarterback, Sam Leavitt, was hurt. He's back. I think Arizona State wins, and I think Arizona State covers. All right, very quickly. So those are my 5 best bets, by the way. Alabama-LSU over 58.5. Ole Miss plus 2.5. We have Michigan, Indiana over 49.5, excuse me. We have Colorado minus 3.5. And finally, we have Arizona State minus 2.5. All right, quickly, let's go ahead and wrap with a little bit of college football, or college basketball, excuse me. And so here's the thing. We did a lot of college basketball on Tuesday's show. I don't know that we're going to talk college hoops every single episode going forward. There's still a lot of college football stuff going on. But at the same time, Friday's show, a little bit quieter. And there were some pretty significant games over the last couple of days. By the way, BYU, who we've covered, Yegor Demon was unbelievable in that debut. Probably won't get to that one. But I do want to get to a couple results over the course of the last couple of days. And we got to start. Listen, you ever seen a tire fire? You ever seen a dumpster fire before? You ever walked by a dumpster and it was literally on fire? That's what Villanova basketball is right now. Okay. So Villanova basketball on Wednesday night ended up losing to Columbia, not the country, the school, the Ivy League school. And you can see it on the screen. It is not good for Cal Neptune. Final score in this game, Columbia beats Villanova 90-80. And so listen, we could go on and on. I could give you the spiel of what went wrong and how did this happen and da-da-da-da. First of all, you give up 90 points to an Ivy League school and you're in the Big East. That's a train wreck. That's a disaster, okay? But here is the bigger thing with Villanova. It's just not working with Kyle Neptune. This is the guy that took over for Jay Wright. It is not working. It will not work. Listen, I don't care what Villanova does. It doesn't matter to me. But I don't think he's there beyond this year. And it's crazy because I go back to year 1 with him. And it's funny, I can still think back to when I can remember where I was when Jay Wright announced his retirement. Was at dinner in Vegas with my family, my stepdad's birthday. We're actually going to a Golden Knights game, okay? And my stepdad just pulls out his phone at the dinner table. Little rude, but that's okay. I do it sometimes from time to time. He goes, "Oh, Aaron, did you hear Jay Wright retired?" I'm like, "Dude, shut up. That's not funny. That's not funny." And then I sat back and I was like, that's not a very random thing for somebody to joke. Like that's not something you would just make up in the middle of nowhere. And so I bring it up because I remember where he was. But remember, Villanova was coming off of a Final Four. So it's not like, oh, the program was a disaster. It needed a rebuild, whatever. Program was coming off of Final Four. You had guys returning to that team. And what ends up happening? Year 1, within like 2 weeks, remember, they played in that PK 85 event. That was the Nike event, Phil Knight's birthday, whatever. And in the PK 85 event, they lost to Portland. And I remember at the time, all the media lackeys, everybody's got to defend the new coach and da-da-da-da and this and that. That's not who I am, okay? First of all, I think we've learned the last couple of days. Can't always trust the media with what they're telling you, okay? But the reason I bring it up is because you look at Villanova, everybody's trying to defend it. Oh, it's a process and this guy's hurt and that guy's hurt. I'm like, Villanova should never lose to Portland. Like, I'm sorry. You don't need, like, just my opinion, but Villanova should never lose to Portland. Well, they lose to Portland. They struggle. They end up missing the NCAA tournament in year one. If you remember that offseason, they went crazy heavy in the portal, and they went crazy heavy in the portal buying players. NIL money, I don't care. Spend your money how you want. But they had clearly raised a lot of money. Neptune had clearly told people behind the scenes, we need more money, buy players, whatever, this and that. And it was even worse last year. And the crazy part was it was just known that they spent a bunch of money. Like, Villanova fans on Twitter would be like, this $3 million roster is awful, okay? And so you go from being the culture school under Jay Wright to now buying your roster. You end up missing the tournament again this past year. And it was funny. I tweeted it out. It's probably still up somewhere. I should have looked it up before. But I remember during portal season when the rosters are coming together, I was like, Villanova potentially could have one of the worst rosters in power conference basketball, because 2 years ago they raised a bunch of money. They clearly had trouble doing the same thing this year, and their roster just wasn't very good on paper. Now, what was wild was coming into the season, all the advanced analytics loved Villanova. Doesn't account for the fact that they're just not very well coached. They lose to Columbia. And again, to me, I don't care what Villanova does. Doesn't matter to me if you keep your coach. If you don't keep your coach, I don't really care. Whatever. But he's not the guy. He's never going to be the guy. And the important thing is, like, sometimes, we just talked about it with Billy Napier, sometimes it's worth keeping a guy if they took over a dumpster fire, if there's positive signs that things are going in the right direction. Well, this guy took over a Final Four team that returned a bunch of talent, and it somehow is still getting worse, and the same things are happening in year 3 that are happening in year 1. So I don't think he's going to be back. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I don't really know how good of a job Nova really is. I've said for years, I think Jay Wright made the job much more than Villanova made Jay Wright. Yes, they won 2 national titles under him. Yes, Jay Wright is a rightful Hall of Famer. Friend of the Aaron Torres pod, by the way, Jay Wright. But why I bring it up is because when I look at the whole situation at Villanova, I think it was largely him. And I think you look at them outside of a miracle run in the 85 NCAA tournament as a 9 seed, like, there's not as much history as people want to make it out to be at Nova. So I could go on, but if that job were to open, like, I just don't know how good it is. I don't know who would even be a candidate, but I just cannot see a scenario where they run it back for another season. I just can't see that happening at all. Villanova ended up losing that game. Ugly loss for Nova. Congrats to Columbia. I think this is the first time we've probably talked Columbia basketball here on the Aaron Torres pod. Really quickly, going to take a quick swig of water here. All right, let's switch gears. Let's go to, how about the UConn Huskies? UConn, they played Sacred Heart on Monday night. Final score, a lot to a little, okay? By the way, quick shout out Sacred Heart. So my Collie Puffs rep, Brian, went to Sacred Heart. So love Sacred Heart. Be honest, it's a small school in Connecticut. Had a lot of fun down there in Fairfield County and Fairfield back in my younger days, okay? So shout out Sacred Heart. I always have wonderful memories of that school. You know what Sacred Heart does not have wonderful memories of? Gampel Pavilion, because UConn laid the wood to Sacred Heart. Final score in this one, like I said, it is basically UConn a lot to a little. The actual final score is 92-56, okay? Listen, not going to overanalyze it, not going to take it away. I think there are a few things that stand out, though. First of all, Alex Caravan, who was banged up last year, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 7 blocks, or 7 assists, 7 blocks, 6 rebounds. Saw a stat, he's the first player since 2003, 20 points, 7 blocks, and 7 assists in a single game. So he played really well. Liam McNeely, the 5-star freshman, we spent so much time talking about that kid when he committed back in April. He had a phenomenal debut. He finished with 18 points, 3 of 6 shooting from 3. Looks so comfortable, so confident with that team. And then finally, I think the thing that stands out about UConn to me is the depth. And I think I've mentioned it, but I actually got a chance to watch a little bit of a practice when I was back in Connecticut, back in Stores in October. And the thing that stood out, they just have so many guys. And the thing about Hurley, he's going to play his 7 or 8. He's not going to play 13 guys. That's just not the way he coaches. That's not the way most people coach, okay? But I remember watching and thinking to myself, like, there's a freshman named Isaiah Abraham. That kid would start at virtually any other school in the Big East. I haven't, gone down depth charts. He would start at most other places. Barely got off the bench, not because he's a bad player, just because UConn has so much talent on that roster. On top of that, also worth noting, another player, Ahmad Noel, true freshman. I think he'd play in a rotation at every other Big East school. He's the third, basically, ball handler on the depth chart behind Hassan Diarra and behind Aiden Mahaney. By the way, solo ball, 16 points as well. And I think it's worth noting, this is how deep they are. Jaden Ross, who I think could be a breakout player, did not even play last night. So credit to UConn. They get the dominant win. They looked really good, people. They looked really good. I still think they have a little bit of work to do. I don't think they're as far along as they were at this time last year. And by the way, that's okay. I just think that it's going to take a little bit more time than it has in the past. But UConn does get the win. A credit to UConn. All right, really quickly before we go ahead and get out of here, there is one more team that I do have to talk about. And listen, anytime I talk about them, I know the comments from some places and some comments from other places, but let's go ahead and talk about John Calipari's regular season debut at Arkansas. The final score in this one from Bud Walton Arena, Arkansas 76, Lipscomb 60. First of all, shout out to fans. I think there was some sort of food giveaway if they hit 75, so they got to 76 and everybody was screaming and everybody was yelling and everybody was happy. So congrats to Arkansas fans who got some free food out of the adventure. But obviously, the game was kind of up and down. It wasn't the cleanest performance. And so because everything John Calipari does is under a microscope, everybody's freaking out. They didn't play well. They stink. Torres, you picked them to go to the Final Four. You're an idiot. Let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, weird game from this perspective. It was both really close and really not close at all, right? So if you watch the game, and I'm thinking that if you're listening to this show at this point, you probably did. But it was kind of wild because Lipscomb was fine early. But as the game went on, Arkansas built up a nice big lead. And it was wild because 13 minutes left, they're up 15 points. Arkansas is up 55-40 with 13 minutes to go. You think it's going to be a 20-point victory, whatever. We probably wouldn't even talk about it on the show if that had happened. Then Arkansas immediately gives up a big run. I think it was like a 6-0 run, something like that. It ended up being overall a 16-5 run. Arkansas cuts the lead to, or Lipscomb cuts the lead 60-56. And all of a sudden you're like, is Cal going to lose this game? Then to his credit, Big Z hits a 3. Zvonimir Visic hits a big 3, then an and 1. He goes on a personal 6-0 run, and Arkansas pulls away and gets the victory. But of course, because it was close in the second half, you had a lot of people, Cal sucks, Cal this, Cal that. Let's go ahead and dive in because I think there's some positives. I think there's some concerns, and I think there's certainly some things to work on with Arkansas getting set to play Baylor on Saturday. From the positive perspective, a couple things. One, Bill Self said it after the exhibition game the other week when Arkansas played Kansas. He said that's the best backcourt we'll see. They largely played like it on Wednesday night. DJ Wagner did not play particularly well, but Nelly Davis proved why he was the best player in the portal, according to some. I had him as a top 3, top 4 player in the portal. That kid was phenomenal on Monday night or on Wednesday night for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Okay, he finished with 15 points. I thought the crazy thing was he missed a couple wide open threes early in the first half. So finished with 15 points, and I think it easily could have been 17, 18, 19. But he was injured in the preseason. He is very clearly coming into his own. So he played well. Boogie Flan played pretty well. Big Z played pretty well. And I think the positives are, one, Nelly Davis is starting to get healthy. That's an absolute positive. And then I think, two, beyond Nelly Davis getting healthy, the other thing that's important, Jonas Adu played a little bit. He was the transfer from Tennessee, really talented big man, didn't play in the preseason. He played for a couple stretches in that game. But that's going to be your starting 5, man, and you'll want him back. You'll want him healthy, especially going into Baylor. If you watch the game, you could tell he was nowhere near 100%. And so because of it, it's a positive that you took care of business. It really wasn't that close without you're starting 5-man. So those are the positives. By the way, I thought Trevin Brazil, the only holdover from the Eric Musselman era, I thought he played really well. Confident, aggressive, running, jumping, blocking shots. I'm curious how Cal, figures out that 3-man rotation with him, with Big Z, with Jonas Adu. So those are the positives. There were a lot of positives, to be perfectly honest. There are some negatives as well. Listen, opening game, it's a game that you would like to have absolutely dominated like so many other teams did on opening night. But it's also worth noting, there are some concerns. And I think the big concern, by the way, Lipscomb's not, I'm not defending the performance. Lipscomb's not bad. The 20-12 last year finished really high in their conference standings. But here's the other thing, okay? There are concerns, and I think the big one, and it is obvious, and I even said this after the Kansas win. So it's not like, Torres is a sunshine pumper. He never says anything negative. I said that 3-point shooting might be an issue going forward, and it has been since the Kansas game, and it really was in the Kansas game as well. They just played so well it didn't matter. By the way, I should mention one other positive, because I'm a glasses half full guy. Arkansas defensively is excellent, okay? And this was a big knock of the Cal last couple of years, is his team struggled defensively. Well, in this game, much like the Kansas exhibition game, they forced a total of 19 turnovers and had 25 points off those turnovers. Where I think you could be a little bit concerned, though, is that was a lot of their offense. They finished with 76 points. A third of their offense came off turnovers. You obviously can't rely on that. And the concern is the 3-point shooting. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm not going to pretend like nothing's wrong and da-da-da-da and this and that. But again, you cannot, if you want to win games, go 4 of 19 from 3. I mean, you're going to face teams that make 12, 13, 14 threes in a game. You have to be better than that. That's the simple truth. Now, what I would also say, I think it's worth noting, I think they'll probably be better than they were on Wednesday night. Because look, Boogie Fland is not going 1 for 8 shooting threes in most games this year. I'm not saying he's a 48% free throw shooter or 3-point shooter, but I don't think he's going 1 for 8. If he goes just, 3 for 8, it's 6 more points. It looks better. You're not as worried as it is. Nelly Davis, by the way, was a 41% 3-point shooter at Florida Atlantic. He's going to make threes at a higher clip than he did on Wednesday night. And so I could go on and on. I could freak out. I think there were some positives. The defensive intensity was awesome. You got to give him credit for that. Defensive intensity was awesome. Big Z was great down the stretch. Nelly Davis was great down the stretch. I still think Boogie Fland is really, really, really special. But the big concern is, can you consistently make 3-pointers? You're going to have to go better than 4 of 19. There's too many good teams in the SEC. Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Ole Miss, plus Baylor this weekend, plus Illinois in the out of conference, plus at Clemson in the out, or at Miami in the out of conference. Schedule is tough. Schedule is thankless. You need to shoot the 3-ball better. We'll see if it happens, but Arkansas gets the win. And as I just said, Baylor this coming Saturday, we're going to find out pretty quick just how good they are. Baylor struggled. I don't believe that Baylor is as bad as they looked against Gonzaga. I think you'll get a much better effort kind of in your area of the country. So yeah, can't freak out about Arkansas just yet, but you certainly want it to be a little bit better. All right, I'll tell you what. I think that's it. I think that's it for this episode of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. If you're not subscribed to the show, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure to rate and review the show. Go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All for today's show. Appreciate everybody's support, and I will be back Sunday night. Thank you again for everybody who's listening. It is time for me to go, and fun episode. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see everybody on Sunday. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You F-head. Unblock me, bro.